What up, Chicken Nuggets? Tyler here with Tarver Cards, and today I want to hear your story on how you got into collecting sports cards, whether you've been in an OG and you never quit, or if you took a little hiatus like your boy did. So let's talk about it. So this is usually like the episode that people do first, and I'm talking quiet because people in my family are asleep. So I want to talk about kind of my sports card collecting journey and how I got there. And if you're on YouTube, I'd love to know in the comments. If you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please go to my Instagram and let me know. I would love to know how you got started. I just think I love it. I just think it's a cool story to see people's journey. So when I was a kid, like I think a lot of young boys who were maybe into sports, I lived in Atlanta, Georgia, and I loved the Atlanta Braves because, we got to go to a few games and, we got the chance to like be around that in the mid 90s. Like the Braves were the best. All right. Because like we got to go to school and they were in the playoffs like every year. And it's like, it was normal for them to go. Everybody's team gets to go to the World Series. And one of the coolest things I remember was in fifth grade, the Braves were in the World Series and they let us wear hats to school. We could wear Braves hats to school during the week. And as a kid, like you didn't get to wear hats to school back then in the 90s. And so I was like, this is the best thing ever. Because like back then people were like, if you wear hats to school, that means that you're in a gang. Does anybody else like remember teachers telling them that? Anyways, so into the Braves. So I collected their cards. And then obviously, like I think every kid, like you had to be, I'm trying to see Michael Jordan. I don't know if you can see him. Everybody is obsessed with Michael Jordan. Like I think it's a rule. If you grew up in the 90s, you had to be borderline obsessed with Michael Jeffrey Jordan. And so I was collecting cards, a lot of baseball cards, a lot of basketball cards. And it was, for me and like my dad, it was more of like a quantity game. Like we just collected as many as we could. And so I remember there's like a video of me when Chris on like a VHS and I'm just opening these long boxes that you would do to put like one complete set in. And I'm just like 88 Donruss, like the blue border ones and then the red border ones. Like it was just all the stuff that now we go and look at. So he's like, I think I got a $10,000 card. And you look at it and you're like, no, you got 10,000 cards, my boy. That ain't worth $1. And so it's like, that's what I had. And that's what I collected. And my dad and I had Beckett's and we'd sit down and we'd like checklist them and go through all of it. And I loved it. And I remember the best card I ever pulled as a kid was Michael Jordan. It was a collector's choice baseball card. I pulled it out of a minor league pack. It was like this big box I got for $20 at Walmart. And I'm pulling all the packs. And it was a Michael Jordan and he's swinging it in his Chicago White Sox, or I guess Birmingham Barons jersey, and in gold it said 1 of 15,000. Like that was my only number card. And I just remember I was like, my mom said you were shaking. And I actually got it graded with SGC recently, and it got authentic because I literally would move it from case. Every time I'd get a better case than the one I put in, I'd move it to a new case. And it was like it eventually ended in like a screw down. And so it was janky by the time I got it. But that was my card I remember when I was a kid. And everything else is just sheer bulk, you know what I mean? Just straight gas. Did anybody, if you're on YouTube, in the comments, were you a quantity or quality? Like I did not know, like all the 90s cards I collect now, like these, like the EX stuff or the autographs or the numbers. Like I didn't even know that world existed when I was a kid. I just thought that like you tried to complete sets. And I think that's carried over. I still collect sets. There's several sets I have on binders. Like I collect complete sets as well. And my buddy Chris is now working on the 96. It's the 1996 basketball Flair. So they had the row 0, the row 1, and row 2. It was like the Kobe Iverson rookie year. And I've got all the row 1s and 2s, and I've got a lot of the row 0s. But he's working on that set as well. And I'd kind of pause that because I got, I'm working on the top 75 NBA auto set, and then I'm working on this credential set. But now that I'm down to like the really expensive ones, I'm like, maybe I could pick that back up. But that was what I loved. I love collecting sets, and I still think that carries over today. But unfortunately, had I been growing up and getting adult money, whenever I could have gone to card shows and collected cards and picking up Michael Jordan inserts, because that's what I would have done. I literally have like, what is it? 4, I'm counting, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4.5, three row top loader boxes. I don't know how many of those fit in there, but it's all Michael Jordan cards. Like I'd never sell Michael Jordan cards. People come to my table now, they're like, you got any Michael Jordan or Steph? I go, no. I mean, yes, I have a lot. I have a lot of them and Jordan Poole, but none of them at my table because I collect those guys. Those are my 3 favorite players. And so I would have had all the MJs. However, right there when we moved from Atlanta to Arkansas, it's just like I stopped collecting cards, and I always joke and say like I was trying to play sports and date girls, and I wasn't very good at either of them. I was mid, as the kids say, and I just got out of collecting cards. And it's funny because like back in like 2010 or 12, I remember I was like trying to be funny on the internet. I was like doing skits like Lonely Island. It was like more like 2008, 2009. I grew up a lot in the next 3 years, but I was like trying to be funny. Like Lonely Island came out, and I was trying to make YouTube videos and being silly and stupid. And they weren't very good, but I remember I went to a conference, and there was the only baseball card story I have from that time period because I went and found some like just junk wax cards, and I had a stack of them. And at these conferences, like it's a big networking thing, and people were doing like blogs at the time and like videos, and they're all connecting and trying to share and whatever. Can I do a guest post on your blog? Which is like the early 2000s equivalent of like, do you want to be on my podcast? Which I have a podcast. Do you want to be on my podcast? Sorry, that was weird. Thank you for being listening to my podcast. I'm sorry I'm talking this weird tone. I'm just trying not to be loud because everybody in my house is asleep. But I remember I took that stack of cards, and like as a joke, whenever people are like handing me their card, I'm like, oh, I got a card. And I pull out like just like a 1989, Donruss Ron Gant. I'm like, oh, here's my card. And like, I remember like the couple people I did it to, like, I'm not gonna lie, it killed. I actually did it today at work. I had to speak. We had like our all staff meeting, and I had to get up there and talk. And like right before I got up to talk, I had a Patrick Ewing. It was like a 1990 Hoops Patrick Ewing, and I just pulled it out and handed it to my boss. And I was just like, and then I kept going. He just started laughing. It was pretty funny. It was pretty fun. It's a fun joke you can do with people that don't collect cards is every now and then just like walk through the hall and go, oh, I got you something. And you just hand them a card and walk off is one of my favorite things to do. So I took this hiatus from like mid 1990. It was like 96, around the time I could have collected Kobe rookies. And I was, just, living life and playing cards and working and every summer. And, then went to college, got in intramurals, and got married right after college, and just started working, had to work and make money because that's how life works, because you got to pay bills and stuff. And so I just did that for like 25 years. And then let's go to right around COVID. So yeah, and then I've started calling myself a COVID baby. Not like that's the term that we've all given to like babies that were born during COVID, but I've started calling it people that either got back into collecting cards or got into collecting cards during COVID. I call them COVID babies. Just a little fun thing I do. Just a little silly thing I like to do. And so I was so dumb. But I was sitting there, and it was during COVID, and COVID was actually really busy for me because at work, I was like the only person who knew how to use the internet and social media. And that was really important in COVID because everybody was using the internet. And so I'm like having to teach everybody how to do it. And then schools are reaching out. So I'm getting like a lot of like side gigs, like presenting and doing online presentations and Zoom calls. And so it was just a really busy time for me. But I remember my oldest son, Titus, it was late 2020. My oldest son, Titus, had just gotten into comic strips. So like, not to be confused with comic books, okay? And I say that because I used to be obsessed with comic strips, so like Calvin and Hobbes, Foxtrot, The Far Side, Garfield. A lot of those are comic strips. So it's like Sunday morning cartoon stuff. And he had gotten into one called Foxtrot and Calvin and Hobbes. And so two of the goats, if you will. And he's sitting there and he's like, oh, I really want to get these books. And I'm looking on Amazon, and I'm like, these are like, it was like $20 per book. And I know how fast, because I used to read them all the time. I was like, I know you can read through these things in like an hour. And then you're going to be like, okay, cool. Now what do I do? And I go spend another $15, $20. And I was like, dude, I think I have some of these. Like I used to have these when I was a kid. So I got a key to my parents' mini storage, and I was going through some boxes with my name on them that I hadn't seen since I was a kid, and they moved. And so all the boxes are in storage, and I'm going through it. And it's like a bunch of like my books, and I found it. It was like all my books and all the stuff that was on my shelf, like my yearbooks and stuff like that growing up. And I found this binder. I'm trying to see if I have it in here. I think I do, but I think it's like you'd have to wait. It doesn't matter. It was a 1-inch binder that said Michael Jordan on it, and it was just full of Michael Jordan cards in a binder. And I went through it and I looked at it, and I was like, this is like, it brought back those memories. I feel like it was like I was surfing and I just crashed into a wave of nostalgia. I don't know if anybody else felt like that if you got back into it after a break, but I was just like, it was so fun. That feeling was so cool, seeing those Jordan cards and those little pictures and those little quadrilaterals of these players this player that I loved. And I'm sitting there, and I knew my buddy Chris over the past like year or two before that. My buddy Chris, the same buddy that is collecting that Flair set, he was trying to like raise money to buy something for his wife. I think it was like a ring or a vacation or something for their anniversary. And so he found his old collection, started selling it. And then he realized that he could go to Walmart and buy boxes of, Prism or whatever, and just grab them, clear the shelves, and then he could sell them and then make like small profit. And that's how he was making the money for it. And I remember he had hit me up a few months before that, and he was just like, hey man, if you ever get a chance to swing by Walmart, like if you can go check for the baseball and basketball cards, you can let me know. The basketball cards, I'll pay you for it. And I'm like, okay. And I don't think I ever looked. Sorry, Chris. I'm just not telling you. I don't think I ever looked because I never thought of it. Like I go to Walmart and get, half and half for my coffee. I didn't think about it again. But then I remember, oh yeah, he was hitting me up like several months ago about that. So I like hit him up and talked to him about it. And then I found like my local card shop here, and I went and walked around and looked at it, and I brought in all my Jordans, and I was like, I've heard about this grading thing. What should I do? And then I watched, I used to listen to Gary Vee for like marketing stuff. And I'd seen that he was doing it, but it didn't like make me get into it. But then I was like, oh, let me go see Gary Vee. So I like watched this like 2-hour live stream he did where he just answered a bunch of questions, and found a couple other guys that were into it, and I was hooked. I just started going through everything and finding all my Jordans and putting them in top loaders. And I had like, I'm stacking them up. It just felt so cool to hold these little cards and like just flipping through them. Oh, it's like the coolest. I don't know. It's so lame if you're not into cards, but if you're into cards, like you get it, right? You get that feeling of flipping through cards and top loaders. Like it's just this cool feeling of, I don't know, nostalgia and sport, and like I could hit some treasure. I could find that insert that everybody's overlooked, or, oh, maybe it's just a card I want to put in my collection because it looks dope, or it's a player that means something to me at a specific memory in my life. And so it's like, that was just like the coolest feeling. And it's funny because like my dad, so I said they put those boxes in storage. Well, my dad had a buddy who is awesome, by the way, and I've connected with him since then. Actually traded him for that MJ autograph ball. Thanks, Ronnie. You're the GOAT. And he was really always into cards, and they worked together. And then Ronnie eventually went off and started doing cards full time. And I remember my dad, like right there at the end of where I was into cards, like he bought a bunch of like just boxes. Like I'm talking like moving boxes of cards from Ronnie. And Ronnie knows cards. He knew those were all the junk wax ones. And my dad, who didn't know cards at all, knew that we were just like quantity guys. He was just like, yeah, I'll buy them. And Ronnie's like, man, and Ronnie talked to Ronnie a year or two ago about it. And he was like, yeah, I told your dad. I was like, man, are you sure you want these? Like, this is just like, goes, yeah, man, I think I'll take them. Like dad's thinking he's got like, oh, this could be treasure in a few years. Like all of us did, right? And so my dad had bought, like, I'm talking, I don't know, 8 or 9 boxes, like moving boxes worth of just stacked with cards. Not even in case, just cards, bro. Like put it on the fire, in a deserted island type fire starter cards. And then like I had all the cards that I'd collected, which was a ton of like single rows and like just complete sets of all the like your most basic junk wax, and then just like random collector's choice, upper deck collector's choice cards. And my dad didn't want him to be in the storage, so he has like in his office, he literally had them just stacked up the side, like 10-12 boxes. It literally took up most of the room in his closet, and he had transported them from like all of his moves since Atlanta, and he had kept up with them and kept them indoors in air conditioning. And I went through every single one of those cards, and I don't think there was one card in there worth more than $7. I ended up selling them all. At a yard sale. Like I kept like random ones that meant something to me. I kept all the Ron Gants because I love Ron Gant. Kept all the Fred McGriffs, all the King Griffey Juniors. Like even just like the base, like it's not worth anything. I kept them all. If it's a player I liked, I kept it. Everything else I just stuck back in the box, and just boxes and binders and all this stuff. And it's all binders from when I was a kid where I like drew my name on it and stuff. And we did a yard sale, and I had them out there, and I think I ended up selling them like $20 a box, like just heavy. To guys like my dad that bought them from his buddy Ronnie. And so, fast forward to like a year or two later, and I'd started like putting out signs. Like, got old sports cards? I'll buy them. And I had some people hit me up, like, yeah, I got some cards. Meet here. And I was like, okay. And I did that for a while. I got some great pickups that way. But then I had a guy hit me up. He's like, hey, I got some cards for you, and I'll sell them to you like $300. I was like, okay, well, I'll check them out. So I met him at Starbucks, and I walks over and I was like, hey, what's up, I'm Tyler? And he goes, oh man, he's like, you look familiar. And I was like, oh, you too, man. And he's like, all right, well, where are the cards? I was like, we asked what school you went to. We didn't go to the same school. And he's like, all right, well, here are the cards. We walk over and he opens the back of his SUV. And I look in and I see, some boxes and some binders. And I grab a couple binders and I start looking at it. And I was like, oh, that handwriting's weird and different, looks familiar. And then I go, oh, that's my name. And I'm going, oh, these were my cards. The guy that bought all of he bought like $100 worth of junk wax from me at a yard sale. Like 8 or 9 months later, hits me up to sell me back that junk. Didn't know it was me. He didn't know I was the guy that sold it to him. He thought I was just a guy buying cards. And I'm sitting there and I see that and I'm like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, and out of curiosity, I was like, all right. So he's like, man, I haven't gone through it. So it could be good stuff in there. Like everybody always says, even if they've gone through it. And he goes, yeah. He said, I sell it to you for $300. I'm sitting there thinking, bro, you bought it from me for $100. So I went through it, you went through it, and you want to make $200, which I was like, I respect the hustle, my boy. But then I was like, and I kind of like part of me going, can I have the binder? Cause it's like, I had all my signature. I was like me practicing my signature in like 5th grade on it. But I was like, man, these are really great cards. I think I'm good. I appreciate it. Have a good one. And I left. Dude tried to sell me my own cards. I sold them at a yard sale like a year, 8 months before. So I don't know. That was like one of my favorite stories of those. So that's what got me into it. That's what got me back into it. It was my kid. And I did find all of those Foxtrot and Calvin and Hobbes books for him. And he read them all in a day. So I'm glad I went and found them. But pulling out those books, and it reminded me to tell this story because like a couple of days ago, I was talking about something with cards and, whatever. And my oldest son, Titus, goes, yeah, and it's all because of me. And I was like, well, it's because of you. And he goes, because remember, I needed to go get those books for me. I was like, you are correct. So there you go. That's the story of how I got into cards originally, my collecting journey, and how I got back into it. So if you're on YouTube, I'd love to know in the comments what got you into it originally, if you've been in it since a kid, and what got you back into it. Are you a COVID baby like me? Got back into it in COVID? Let your boy know. Thank you guys for listening. I appreciate you. Thank you for spending this time with me. And thanks for hearing a different tone of voice with me because I'm trying not to wake everybody up else in my house. Y'all be good. Stay sweet. Never stop collecting. Sports cards are dope. So are you.